Just before we left our home in Georgia, I went to an estate sale and stumbled upon a really great cookbook called The Art of French Cooking. It was published in 1962 and it is quite the resource for recipes. Almost anything you can think of and quite a few things I've never heard of are included in here. I also saw a page of menu suggestions, and I decided that I would do a breakfast and lunch day of cooking French foods from this cookbook. For breakfast, there wasn't a specific menu. I suspect the French don't really eat much of breakfast based on my time in Europe, but I picked out these really interesting yeast waffles because I've never seen a waffle with yeast in it. And it was quite the recipe. It called initially for 18 eggs, and I decided to quarter it. Now, in the future, I will half it because while it does seem like a lot of eggs, a quarter only made 2 waffles. This recipe was very easy to put together. While there are a lot of steps, none of them were too complicated. I had my doubts about it coming together. It was a pretty thick batter, and I was a little unsure of how long to let the yeast rise. It didn't give any clear instructions. You make a yeast paste, which I've never done before, and in the future I would like to try it kind of letting it sit a little bit longer and see if it makes a difference on consistency. But overall, these turned out really great. My husband asked me to make it again on Monday morning, and I was happy to oblige because they were pretty darn good. First up on the menu is hors d'oeuvres, and I went through the list and I found something that felt attainable and kind of interesting. And this onion tart, I honestly didn't know exactly what to expect, and I was a little unsure on how to put it together. What I really like about this book is what I also really dislike about this cookbook is the recipes are very open-ended, which can be great. I really enjoy not having to follow strict rules. But sometimes when it's your first time making something, I do wish there was a little bit more details. So this onion tart, I used about 3 onions. I caramelized them, and I made a bechamel sauce. I added some eggs to it, and I added the onions and poured it into a homemade pie crust, and I baked it for about 40 minutes. And hands down, this was my favorite thing that I made that day, and it will definitely be carried over into something that I make for get-togethers in the future. Potatoes fundantes, and if you speak French, you can let me know in the comments how much I butchered that. They are basically a fancy way of saying pan-fried potatoes. So all I did was take these potatoes, slice them up nice and thin, put a hefty amount of butter. I reused the pan that I cooked all of the bacon in for the onion tart, which wasn't in the recipe, but I just threw that in there because I figured it would be good, and it was. And so you were supposed to Fry those low and slow, and then you cover them so that they cook nice and tender, and you put a little bit of bouillon at the end to add a little bit of extra flavor. These were really good, and you honestly can't go wrong with any form of fried potato. The next thing that I prepared was a salad. Now, the menu just said salad, so I decided to make my own dressing, and I was going to make Caesar, but I totally messed it up and accidentally got sardines instead of anchovies. So I just kind of made a mustard type vinaigrette. I honestly winged it because I didn't realize this until it was too late. So I just whipped that up, I tossed it, and it was not too bad. Next on the list was grilled lamb chops. Now, the recipe book had a little statement in there that it wasn't up to them to tell them how a cook should grill lamb chops. So I had to go on Google and do a little bit of research, and I found a pretty good recipe. I marinated it for a couple of hours in olive oil, lemon juice, and some herbs. Pan fried it on both sides for 4 minutes and stuck it in the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes. And guys, they turned out so dang good. I was really happy with how everything turned out, and I was excited to have my friend over who I hadn't seen in more than 7 months, and she finally got to meet our newest baby, which was beyond exciting. And this is what the final feast looked like, and it was quite the feast. It was delicious, and I really enjoyed making and learning new dishes. The last thing that we made was some strawberries with fresh whipped cream, and it was just a delightful end to a wonderful meal and a great day spent with friends. Thank you so much for joining me today, and if this is something that you enjoyed, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I do put out videos every week on cooking, homesteading, and other mom life content. Until then, I'll see you guys soon.